If you really want to know what your cardiovascular health status is, then you need to do more testing than just the standard 4 or 5 things that your regular medical doctor will run on their standard lipid panel. They'll usually test cholesterol, HDL, LDL, maybe the HDL to LDL ratio, and the triglycerides. But that doesn't give us hardly any valuable information at all. In fact, it's often more dangerous to your health because your doctor will recommend certain medications that most of you probably shouldn't ever be on because of those numbers. We do have to take cardiovascular health seriously. It's still the #1 killer in the Western world, slowly beating out cancer. So what can you test to really find out what your cardiovascular health is at so that you can then go and make the appropriate changes to your lifestyle and diet rather than go on medications that are a band-aid at best and killing you in other ways at worst? So of those main ones they'll test, cholesterol, HDL, LDL, HDL-LDL ratio, and triglycerides. That last one is the only one that has any value. If your triglycerides are high, then that's a really good sign that you're getting a lot of things in your diet that you shouldn't be getting. It's creating some inflammation, and it's probably going to lead to some kind of arterial or heart disease. So you do want to get that number down, and you want to get it down significantly lower than what the normal range is. Most testing will say anything under 150 is fine. Really, you want to be under 100 if you can get there. But what else can you test? Well, these are the ones I like to see that gives a full picture so that you can make accurate lifestyle and diet changes. First of all, when you're measuring LDL, get the LDL direct number, not just LDL. LDL is essentially a calculation that's a guess. Direct LDL is actually calculating real numbers. Now, we also have to be careful not to put too much weight on the LDL number because there's this old myth that we used to think cholesterol was bad, then we realized, well, that's not the case. There's good and bad cholesterol. HDL is good, LDL is bad. Well, then they realized, well, no, not all LDL is bad. It's only a certain type of LDL that's a very small density that is a problem. And in fact, during COVID, there was multiple research studies that showed you're at more risk of hospitalization if your LDL was too low. So you really can't go off that number. But if you're going to use LDL at all, you need to have the LDL direct, not just LDL. Then the next things you want to test are your apolipoproteins, ApoB and ApoA1. Now, to keep it very simple, think of your apolipoproteins as taxi drivers. They'll move cholesterol and specifically HDL, LDL around the blood. So if you have more or less of the apolipoproteins, it's usually going to correlate with more or less HDL and LDL. So ApoA1 carries HDL, which is predominantly good cholesterol. So it's okay if that number's at a certain height. We don't want it too high, but it's okay. And ApoB carries LDL. So the theory is if that's too high, you've got too much LDL, but it also carries the very low density LDL. And so it does give you a little bit more meaning than just LDL. But let's go another step deeper. You also want to make sure that they're doing a general inflammation test. So high sensitive C-reactive protein is probably as good as you're going to get from your regular doctor there. I really like doing a fatty acids panel that looks at the AA-EPA ratio. That's arachidonic acid versus EPA, which is an omega-3. That's a more sensitive inflammation marker than even high sensitive C-reactive protein, but it's good enough if you're getting this whole panel, because again, we're trying to paint a whole picture. Then we need to look at oxidized LDL. It will often be OX-LDL. When you have oxidative stress in your body, it converts LDL into oxidized LDL, which is a far more accurate marker for heart disease than just straight LDL, because oxidized LDL is damaged and it does signify oxidative stress, inflammation, damage going on inside your body. So that one does mean a lot. And again, remember, if you do all these tests and one of these is high, don't worry that you're about to die of a heart attack or a stroke. Everything together in relativity. But if you have multiple that are high, then that should be your warning sign that you need to change something. Again, you're probably not going to drop dead tomorrow unless they're all really, really high, but you've got to at least take the urgency to go, I need to make some serious changes over the next 90 to 180 days. Then we want to look at the small density LDL. That'll show as SD-LDL. That's looking at more of what really should be the bad LDL, the small density or the very small density. They change the texture and the shape when they're at that small size, and they're the ones that do tend to be associated with problems in the arterial walls. Then we can look at the LPA, which is another lipoprotein. So that in general just transports cholesterol around the blood. So the theory is if that's too high, then it can indicate a higher likelihood of plaques. But ultimately, we have to remember this. Cholesterol, especially healthy cholesterol, is not only is it not the bad guy, we need it to live. Every single cell in our body needs cholesterol. Virtually every cell wall is made of cholesterol. You are going to have far more health issues if it's too low than if it's too high. That's a huge myth that's been pushed that sells a lot of medications, and that's about it. So what is the enemy then? Well, it's inflammation and oxidative stress. When our arterial walls get inflamed, our body is going to lay down these cholesterol-filled plaques to cool it down. So what happened was we were finding these plaques and thinking, gee, these plaques are the problem. But that would be like an alien coming to Earth and seeing firefighters not knowing what they're doing and thinking, well, every time there's a fire, there's these guys dressed in helmets spraying that, they must be generating the fire without knowing they're putting it out. Well, that's what the cholesterol plaques are doing. They're putting out the fire. So we have to turn that down. So you don't worry about cholesterol, you worry about turning down inflammation and oxidative stress through lifestyle, predominantly through what we eat, but also emotional stress and doing enough physical exercise to help. So that's really what you've got to take into account. But at the very least, before making any decision on the real status of your heart health, and absolutely before you go on any of these statin drugs or anything else, because of the nasty side effects of them, you have to be absolutely sure that you need them. You should be running at least all of those tests that I just mentioned at an absolute bare minimum. There's a few others I've left off there, but these are the main ones that you have to have. The other ones are just nice to add on as well. So if you have more questions about this, about what to test for your heart health or what it means if you've got certain numbers, just leave a question below. I can comment in generalities. I can't give you medical advice online, but I can give you general thoughts on your questions and on what your test results might be. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we don't want you to miss any of our videos coming up on more testing and how to stay healthy. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again on the next one.